When real men can't sleep, real men do the news. So this happened. Well, first, back in 2017, Nancy Pelosi was asked whether or not the Affordable Care Act, whether or not Medicare for All is a litmus test. Her answer is rather disturbing. Let's flip to it just so you can see it, because I have a point to make. Single payer isn't a litmus test for Democrats. Pelosi declined to endorse Medicare for All legislation backed by Sanders and instead called on Democrats to release a wide range of proposals to fix and improve Obama's signature health care law. Just as, to make a point, the Affordable Care Act has just been ruled unconstitutional in a federal court. No, it's not necessarily taken down at the moment, but it has been ruled unconstitutional by a conservative court. I'm going to do this story. It was Republicans have changed some of the laws, and in changing some of the laws, they analyzed the law in the context of the laws that were changed, and the judge was able to find it unconstitutional. It has to do with this goes a little bit beyond the scope of the story, but ultimately, the Republicans got rid of the penalty for Obamacare. And in getting rid of the penalty for Obamacare, well, the whole point of the thing is that it's a tax. And they went with this idea that, well, once the penalty is gone, the country or the legislatures don't necessarily have the legal basis in which to implement Obamacare in the way it's being implemented. That's somewhat of a sketchy overview of it, but that's the gist of it. The legal reasoning on that will seem to be somewhat dodgy, but whether the legal reasoning is dodgy or not, a federal judge found Obamacare unconstitutional. So her trying to protect it, well, judge just kind of nixed it. And you only have one section of the government, which is the House. That's the first point. Second point, you're wrong. It is a litmus test. And every Democrat that doesn't back Medicare for All should fail. It should be a red line. Nancy Pelosi getting out there saying it's not a litmus test. It needs to be very clear and present to her and every other Democrat that doesn't back it that they will fail and lose. I don't care if Satan himself is on the other side of the goalpost. They need to fail and lose. Let's keep going. Chuck Schumer gets out and says something similar, essentially on the same page as Pelosi. Chuck Schumer tells Chuck Todd this.
Adam Green, founder of Progressive Change Campaign Committee, writes, he says, Democrats need to put a bright North Star in the sky for 2020 voters, showing what Democrats would do with more power and making clear that we're moving toward Medicare for All as a big part of a 2020 electoral strategy. It seems pretty clear that the presidential nominee, whoever it is, will support Medicare for All. Do you think it's time for Democrats to push this?
Look, Democrats are for universal access to health care from one end of the party to the other.
Just to be clear, you already have access to health care universally. Anyone can go into a hospital and get health care coverage. The point is not that anyone could go into a hospital and get health care coverage. You would get a massive bill, but you can do it. If you got your finger cut off tomorrow, you can go in and get that finger, get some kind of medical care so you don't bleed to death. The issue has to do with the costs. People are paying magnificent, over-the-top costs for healthcare, particularly in regards to comparisons to other countries. I am in other countries. I was able to get healthcare in other countries, and it is less, especially if you're talking about pharmaceutical care. It's less. The thing that Donald Trump, do you remember Donald Trump was saying, I'm going to lower healthcare medical costs, drug costs. I'm going to lower drug costs. I'm going to lower drug costs. And he was talking about a plan to tether the drug costs in the United States to the drug costs in other countries that have socialized healthcare. The point is not universal coverage. You already have universal coverage. The issue is cost. Chuck Schumer is being dodgy with his words. Let's keep going.
We want more people covered, everyone covered. We want better health care at a lower cost. People have different views as to how to get there. Many are for Medicare for all. Some are for Medicare buy-in. Some are Medicare over 55. Some are Medicaid buy-in. Some are public option. We're going to have to do a lot more on health care. It will be a major issue in 2020. And I believe Democrats will coalesce around the best way to get the best health care for the most people.
Where are you?
Just so we're clear, the best health care for the most people, if you're talking about lowering costs and if you're talking about everybody being covered, you know a way to get everybody covered: Medicare for all. Not only do you get the best costs from the standpoint of Medicare for all, you get the best coverage, and you cover the entirety of the nation for less. One study after the next demonstrates it. Best coverage for less. I don't know what Chuck Schumer is talking about. I don't know what Chuck Schumer is talking about. But this is the wrong answer. Let's keep going.
Do you think you should spend more time fixing the Affordable Care Act or launching a new health care proposal?
Well, we first have to undo this awful decision because, look, we have a Republican president, we have a Republican Senate. They've spent a lot of time sabotaging health care, so that's the first job. But after that, Democrats, as we did in 2018 rather successfully, are going to make health care a major, probably the major issue in the upcoming campaigns and as we act in Congress. And we're going to force our Republican colleagues, now that this decision has sort of lifted up cheapest health care for all Americans.
The best, cheapest health care for all Americans is demonstrated from one study after the next. Whether you're talking about the lowering of drug costs, whether you're talking about the lowering of healthcare costs in general, it's to get rid of the healthcare companies that are a part of that mix and to provide the highest level of healthcare across the board for everybody. It lowers the cost of healthcare. Chuck Schumer is being somewhat dodgy here again, and you know, Mr. Oblivious Chuck Todd asked him straight, do you support Medicare for all? Well, there are all sorts of plans and etc. Blah, 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 blah. I just want the cheapest. You know what's cheapest? Free. Free at the point of sale. Meaning when a person goes to a hospital, they don't have to pay a copay. When a person goes to a doctor, they don't have to pay a copay. That stuff is free at the point of sale. Yes, your taxes increase a little bit. But fact of the matter is the amount that you're paying for healthcare costs drops. People save thousands of dollars a year. 70% of the public supports it. 84% of Democrats support it. And you can't get Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi on board for this. I understand people keep telling me that they're boarding the ship. Your leadership is not on board with the things that you're talking about. They're just not that into you. Fact of the matter is, everybody that doesn't support Medicare for all should lose. They should not get your support. If they're at the ballot box, I don't give a shit if Satan himself is on the other side. There is no way of propping up the current system or the propping up the way the system is and trying to get some level of change in the way that you want change. A different world is possible. That different world is not possible if you continue to prop up the system the way the system is. People like Chuck Schumer, who is not involved in the interests of the American people. That's what it boils down to. Chuck Schumer is supporting the interests of the healthcare industry. And Chuck Schumer, in supporting the interests of the healthcare industry, needs to fail. Just saying. This idea that you're going to somehow get Medicare for all with people like Chuck Schumer or people who are these kind of blue dog Democrats in these various places, supporting those people is not the way to go. It needs to be very plain. It needs to be very clear that if these guys are running and these guys are not on board for Medicare for all, that they should lose. No hedge, no caveats. They need to lose. I'm just saying. I'm not going to keep this long because it's 3 in the morning here and I have other videos that I kind of want to do. So I'm going to leave this here. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all.